How's it going, YouTube? We're bringing you guys another Digimon match for the BT8 meta. Today, we have the Yellow Hybrid Rapid on the left, and on the right, we have the same X-Antibody list that was shown off in the previous one, except they've made a few other changes, and maybe we'll get to see those in this match. So let's go ahead and hop into the gameplay. So here the Yellow Hybrid player does in fact win the dice roll. They will go ahead and play the TK. Pretty standard start to the Yellow Hybrid setup, where they'll get a little bit of search, grabbing the Zoe. Probably not a bad idea, but passing the turn over to the 4 on the X-Antibody side, they go ahead, Digivolve the Dorumon, and then play the Ryudomon, unfortunately hitting two Hisarumon. So one has to go to the bottom, and then they play a Coda, giving them their 3 back to the Yellow Hybrid side, again revealing a second Oryumon. So it's unfortunate to see one Oryumon and one Hisarumon go to the bottom of the deck, but because in a grind game like this, you kind of want to see your pieces. So passing it back over to the Yellow Hybrid player, they play a Zoe, opted not to search. I wonder if they either know that they don't have anything, or they just forgot to activate it. And then passing turn, letting the X-Antibody player set up a Yuji, and then passing turn back over to them as well, without playing anything else. So here, the Yellow Hybrid player will go ahead, climb up into the Jet Sophimon, get a little bit of recover at 0, and then for 4, Digivolve up into the Ophanimon fall down mode, giving them a little bit extra memory, but at the same cost of they have 7 security now. I was kind of sitting here, I'm halfway surprised that the Ryudomon does not swing in, but I'm guessing they're worried about giving them a little bit of extra tamer advantage. So they decide to just leave it here and Digivolve up into the Hisarumon in the raising. So that's one Hisarumon that we know that they had. So potentially go for something else, but here there's always a good chance that the Ryudomon just dies, so I'm really surprised that they didn't go ahead and swing it in. And then here the Yellow Hybrid player just decides, let's hard evo into the Susanomon. Let's hope that the X-Antibody player has an answer, because if they don't have an answer, that's Susanomon swinging in for 3 checks next turn, potentially revealing lethal if they can't deal with it. So this passes the X-Antibody player over to 4, and then they will gain a little bit extra memory when they raise up the Hisarumon via the Yuji effect. So here you'll see another card that this X-Antibody player in particular liked to use. I believe he used it in the last video of Metal Cannon to get a little bit of extra draw power so that they can maybe search out a few more pieces. So here the Hisarumon will declare the attack at the Susanomon. They will tuck the Dorugumon, gaining a little bit of extra DP from the Dorugumon inherit, and then also gaining the extra inherit effect of the new Black Baby. Name I can't quite remember currently, but this will give them an extra 1k. They'll slot in a Dorugoromon into the source of the Oryumon. This gives Oryumon plus 2k for his own ability, plus 1k for the Dorugumon ability, and plus 1k for the new egg, making the Oryumon a 16k, just able to get over that Susanomon, and then clearing out the opponent's board because of the effect of Oryumon to pop that Salamon. And then they'll just go ahead and pass turn by hard playing down the Ryudomon, and in fact this big boy stack right here of the Oryumon does have blocker and retaliation, and cannot be deleted by card effects currently. So here, even though it can have its DP reduced, it looks like the Yellow Hybrid player doesn't quite have anything to get rid of the Oryumon currently, so they'll go ahead and play the Reinforced Memory Boost after Digivolving the Pata in the back, go ahead and put the TK. So it's nice to have a second TK, you know it's going to be there, so he's going to be able to get a little bit of search, and it's a good target to Digivolve your Hybrid on top of, so you don't lose your Memory Tamer, and then adding the other Digimon to hand. Here, as to no one's surprise, the Oryumon will go ahead, swing in at the stack with 2 Dorugumons in the source, as long as no Wyvern's Breath comes out of security, and then this Oryumon pretty much has no fear. Being 16k without a Zoe effect lingering, or a Zoe effect on the field, or a Zephyrmon lingering, doesn't really have to worry about dying to anything being bigger than it, because of the inherits that it has currently. And here we're going to shuffle up a whole bunch. I'm not exactly sure what's happening here, but they will go ahead and play out the TK as expected, grabbing a Rapidmon. I think right here the opponents are just kind of going over the effects, getting a little bit of good shuffle because he does have quite a few security cards. But here he's going over how many more checks he has, and he has 1 check. He'll hit the Edens, checking how many cards he has in hand. Realizes he can't quite take out the Oryumon, so it looks like he does target the Oryumon just to see if it can die, and in fact it does. It gives it enough negative DP to go ahead and get the Jet Sophimon to take it out. It can't be deleted by card effects, but it can lose to battle just like any other Digimon. So here the X-Antibody player goes ahead and tries to set up a little bit more in raising, get the Ginrymon, and ending the turn by dropping down another Yuji Mushia in the back. So here we know the hybrid player does in fact have a Rapid Mon, so they go ahead, Digivolve another Rapid Mon for 4. They do have plenty of Tamer, or the 2 Tamers, so they are able to suspend the Ryutamon, give it -5, and then gain a little bit of extra memory. That's the starter deck Patamon. It's the alt art. They'll go ahead, swing in. Not really worried about dying to anything. They do have Armor Purge, worst case scenario, and they could just go ahead and survive pretty much anything that's going to happen. And it also gives it another target. Even if they swing over the Patamon, it's not that big a deal. And then the yellow hybrid player will just do what I mentioned before. They'll go ahead, climb up into a Jet Sylphimon, and then get a little bit of extra recovery. Getting a little greedy swinging in, but it looks like they don't really have any top end. I think maybe this list is only running the couple level 6s in the fall down modes, so they just go ahead, drop down the Cody. If they have the full combo again, they have the full combo again. C'est la vie. At least they'll have the Armor Purge unless they swing into the boy. So here the Hisaryumon will go ahead, swing into the Jet Sylphimon. It looks like the yellow hybrid player gets a little ahead of himself, but at the same time, it's not really going to affect the outcome. He's already bigger than the Jet Sylphimon, so even though he gets a little ahead to go ahead and trash before all the effects trigger off, he is just going to go ahead and die. So he's going to go ahead, let the X-Antibody player do his thing, Digivolving up into the Alphamon of all things for 2 memory. We know that there's 1 Oryumon on the bottom of the deck, so we do unfortunately have to worry about that. So no shenanigans potentially right here from a second Yuji into an Oryumon. And then they will go ahead, gain the extra 2 memory at the end of attack. That still happens. The when attacking effect does not trigger, but the effect to go ahead and gain the memory will. And either we've cycled through the whole deck via searches, or we are seeing another Oryumon there go to the bottom of the deck, and even with an Alphamon on field, decides not to opt to destroy or to grab the Oryumon. So they'll just end the turn with the Breath of the Gods, a new addition to the deck, I believe, so that the Alphamon can in fact have the reboot. Already had the reboot, but now he can't have his DP reduced or bounce back to the deck. So back at 3 on the yellow hybrid player sides, they miss the Cody effect here, but they will catch it here in a second. Kind of thinking about what he's going to do. He knows he can't have its reduce the DP of this Alphamon, so he is just kind of going back and forth on the potential that he has. So even though Alphamon can't be deleted by DP or have its DP reduced or bounced, it has no protection from other effects, such as just general deletion effects like, say, an Oryumon would. So in this situation, the yellow hybrid player does in fact have the second Susanomon, at least the second Susanomon. Digivolve on top of the Cody for 7, passing them back over to their 3, getting rid of the big boy Alphamon stack. So here on the X-Antibody player's side, after they go ahead and get popped, their big stack gets popped by the Susanomon, they have to go ahead and start anew. So they Digivolve up the Hisari or the Ryutamon into the Dorugreymon, or Ginryumon into the Dorugreymon, tucking the source underneath so that the Dorugreymon will not be able to be deleted by DP reduction effects or be deleted or have its DP reduced or be deleted by any effects. So here at this point, the yellow hybrid player decides to go ahead and play Eden's Javelin, drawing a card, but they make a little bit of gentleman's agreement here. He did not realize that he was able to keep his DP reduction, have his DP reduced, I should say. So they decide to go ahead and opt to bottom deck the card in hand, since it was a card that he would have drawn off of Eden's Javelin. They decide to go ahead, let him take the playback, and just decide to bottom deck the card. And personally, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where that card ended up. If it ended up back on the top of the deck, if it ended up back on the bottom of the deck, as long as both players are happy in the long run, it is fine. So it's not that big of a deal, and the board state is back to, the X-Antibody player was able to catch keep it having from his DP reduced. And then here, the yellow hybrid player decides to go ahead swinging with the Rapid, unfortunately hitting the Breath of the Gods. So hitting the Breath of the Gods means that none of his other Digimon can attack for the rest of the turn, even if he raises up a hybrid, which it looks like he might not have had, since he had to go ahead and use that yellow memory boost to find the Kazemon, to then Digivolve the Kazemon on top of the Patamon, just to make a little bit of decent use of his memory, guessing he does not have a nice 3-cost tamer to go ahead and play. So here, back onto the X-Antibody player's side, they will go ahead, hatch the egg, kind of contemplating what they want to do. They're in a really rough spot right now. They don't have a lot of cards left in deck. The hybrid player still has 6 security and has quite an oppressive board state. Even though the Susanomon isn't really doing much other than being a big body currently, because they do only have 1 security left. They kind of still have to be able to clear out the board if they don't quite want to die, or just swing in for the OTK. The yellow player has no blockers. I mean, the only thing they really have is Rapidmon. So even if they want to try to go ahead and clear up board right here, they have to swing multiple times into the Rapidmon, but it does in fact look like that is what the X-Antibody player is going to do. So they're going to swing into the Rapidmon, tucking the Oryumon via the effect of Yuji, gaining 2 memory at the end of the attack via Alphamon's effect, and restanding because of Oryumon's effect because there is an Alphamon attacking. Now, this just leaves the Rapidmon the ability to Armor Purge, leaving the Patamon left. So even though he was able to get rid of the Armor Purge guy, he doesn't quite have any other outs currently to this board state, because he does have 2 checks at least. He does have blocker in the Alphamon if he is able to get it to restand, but he doesn't really have a way, I don't believe, to get rid of the rest of the stack here without being able to go into like another Oryumon or something. So here they will go ahead and swing into the Patamon stack to go ahead and get rid of the rest of the body, just to maybe hope for something like another Breath of the Gods. He does have blocker, so maybe just hope that he doesn't have the other hybrid, or he plays another blocker, or maybe has the potential to get rid of another body. So now the Alphamon does have reboot and blocker. Still can be deleted by card effects, still can have his DP reduced, but here the yellow hybrid or the X-Antibody player does not play another Breath of the Gods, so can in fact still have his DP reduced if he has something like a Wyvern's Breath in hand. And this passes back the yellow hybrid player back over to 3. So back on the yellow hybrid player's side, they will try to decide what they want to do here. They have the boost so that they go ahead and pop it, putting themselves to 5, and then paying 8 memory to go ahead and Wyvern's Breath. As I mentioned, the Alphamon does have no protection from DP reduction, and he's also not protected from any deletion effects. Without another Susanomon, there was no worry about the deletion effects, but without another Breath of the Gods, that is a very vulnerable stack for the X-Antibody player because of the amount of DP reduction. He is only at like 11 or 12k. If anything like an Eden's Javelin could have done it, because I believe at this point he has quite a few cards in hand potentially, but a Wyvern's Breath also does the job right away. And here X-Antibody players trying to think about how they want to go about and do it. They have 0 cards left in deck. They have to see if they can go ahead and OTK, or maybe just see how much damage they can do potentially at the end of this turn. So they're thinking if they want to swing and then use the effect, my guess is, or just go ahead and hard Digivolve. Doesn't matter what he has to draw because he has no cards left in deck, and just decides to go ahead hard Evo into the Alphamon, I guess, to maybe get the end of attack effect to bump himself up, but that doesn't really do anything when you have 0 security. Or 0 cards in deck, I should say, for any follow-up turn. So here, he goes ahead and plays 2 Yugis to go ahead and swing the Alphamon, tucking the Oryumon and a second Oryumon. Alright, so I do want to go ahead and go over this. This is an error on the yellow hype on the X-Antibody player's side. Both of the Oryumon will trigger at the end of attack. They are once per turn when attack at the end of attack. So even though he here and tries to swing twice and restand each time, that is not how this effect works. You will only be able to restand 1 time. This is very important because, like I said, it is a once per turn effect that has to trigger. It's a mandatory effect. So he swings in here, gets an extra check, and then restands again. Should not have been able to restand the second time. I did have to catch this later on in the event. Unfortunately, I was not at the table at the current time of this event, so sorry about that little misplay if that bothers anybody, but it is what it is. But here, go ahead. They get their 3 checks in, but at this point, there's not really much that the X-Antibody player can really do. They go ahead, swing in with another Grumble. They Digivolve their Coda into a Grumblemon, Digivolve up, play a Dorymon, and then attempt to search a card. Of course, no cards left to search. And at this point, it is pretty much game on the X-Antibody player's side. They go ahead, slam down the Chumon, passing it back over to the yellow player's side. They will go ahead, gain a little bit of extra memory, and they'll start scooping up because they know that there's nothing they can do with 0 cards left in deck. So yellow hybrid does in fact get it game 1. So on to game 2, the X-Antibody player opts to let the yellow hybrid player go first. This isn't too uncommon because the yellow hybrid is going to usually have to give a decent amount of memory to play a tamer or such on the first turn, letting the X-Antibody player kind of get some chance to set up their own tamer, or at least Digivolve up their stack a little bit, and that's pretty much what happens. The yellow hybrid player decides to go ahead and Digivolve the Salamon and then play a TK in the back, giving them 5 or 4 memory to the X-Antibody player's side. Now here you'll see an opponent or another player picks up the security of the yellow hybrid player. I am sorry for that. That is very infuriating for me to see as well. When I record these games, I try to make sure that people don't really mess with the board state. It is locals, so things happen. Maybe people pop up on screen or you see something like that. But whenever players look at another player's security, if it's just a friendlies match, it's whatever. But during these local events, it's still locals. People know each other. They still try to do it. It bothers me, but I can't be at every table when I'm playing as well, so I do have to go ahead and apologize about that. If you think that affects the board state in any way, because maybe that opponent or that other player could effectively shuffle the security up, I am sorry, but at this point, there's nothing I can really do about it now. So onwards and upwards from that, this will allow the X-Antibody player will go ahead and just raise up, gaining a little bit extra memory from Yuji, drawing a card, digivolving into the Doru Greymon up the stack, tucking a Dorugamon so he can't be deleted by card effects, and making himself a little bit bigger. And then he does in fact have blocker, and then he'll add another Dorumon from the Yuji effect. I'm kind of surprised he doesn't decide to try to add the Hisarumon. Maybe he doesn't have it in hand, so he doesn't have to worry about the deletion or the reboot. But they swing over the Salamon, and then they go ahead and digivolve into the Oryumon straight up, passing turn back over to delete that Salamon or that Patamon to keep the board state as clear. And now you have a very big boy Oryumon stack that can't have its DP reduced and can't be deleted by card effects. So over to the yellow hybrid player's side, they will just decide to go ahead and choke the X-Antibody player at 1, digivolving the Rapidmon in raising. Not really an orthodox play, but at the same time, being able to choke him at 1 memory isn't the worst thing that they could have ever done. So here they'll go ahead and the X-Antibody player will digivolve the Ryudomon in the back, swing into security, using the Yuji effect to tuck another Dorugamon. So making this Oryumon very big. I believe with that second tuck, he is at 16k, because I think there is a Dorimon and not the new egg in the sources. So that makes him 16k off of the effect. Swinging in, he does in fact hit a TK, which allows him to search a little bit, and then he hits a Susanomon, surprisingly able to live from those checks. Thankfully for that other second Dorugamon, he is able to go ahead and survive. So here, gains that little bit of extra memory from the 2 Dorumon in the source, so he's able to still continue his plays by digivolving the Ginryumon in the back. I do not believe that he has reboot, the Oryumon does, but he goes ahead and evolves Hisarumon in the back, kind of set up for another either Oryumon effect or Oryumon play, or maybe like an Alphamon, potentially Dorugoromon. We haven't seen it, so maybe he cut it from the list, but either one of the big bodies is eligible to go into via his Hisarumon effect, especially if he has something like the Oryumon in hand and is able to go into the Alphamon for that little bit of extra restand shenanigans. So passing the turn back over to the yellow hybrid player, they are just going to go ahead and use the yellow memory boost to get a little bit more cycle, and then digivolve their extra TK into the Kazemon. This is a little risky because if he does have the Oryumon, he can swing in with this Hisarumon, pop either the Rapid, which I wouldn't see him doing because it is going to be able to survive, or just go ahead and popping the Kazemon off of the Ginryumon or the Hisarumon effect. But instead, the opponent, the X-Antibody player, decides to go ahead swinging with the Oryumon, suspend Yuji so he gets a little bit of protection and that extra security attack off of the effect, and tucks another Dorumon so that they have a little bit more memory, gaining 3 memory. I believe there's 3 Dorumon in that stack, so quite a big stack with a bunch of effects. Hitting into a Cody and a Zoe. They look at their stack just to see if there's anything. They don't have anything, but now instead of swinging in with the Hisarumon, just decides to go ahead and leave it as is with the 1 security, playing 2 Ryudomon for a little bit of search. My guess is since they don't have the other Grumblemon, or they don't have another Tamer on field, they couldn't be able to end the game anyway. It is kind of painful for the X-Antibody player to not have multiple Yuji, or at least a Coda for the memory setter, so that they can potentially use it for the effect, or for the ability to go into a Grumblemon without being suspended. And here the yellow hybrid player is going to go ahead, hatch an egg, and they do have a Tamer underneath that Kazemon, so they are able to digivolve into the Jet Sylphimon for 1 to be able to gain a little bit of extra recovery to try to hopefully not die on the following turn, and then decide to go climb up a little bit more after popping the boost into the Ophanimon fall down mode. So they're back at 3 security, so even though they have quite a big board state, without being able to clear the board state, they are kind of in a risky situation. So here on the yellow hybrid player side, they go ahead swing in with the Rapidmon in security, It looks like that they forget the Cody effect here, but they will go ahead and catch this here in a second, and allow the X-Antibody player will go ahead and allow the yellow hybrid player to go ahead and use the Cody effect. It's not that big a deal here, I guess. He's not too worried about it, to go ahead and remove one of the Ryudomon. And then they'll go ahead and pay a decent amount of memory. The Oryumon can't be deleted by card effects. The Hisaryumon can, but you see here he's playing the memory, so it's potential of a Susanomon coming out, but they do decide to go ahead and Digivolve the Susanomon, targeting the Hisaryumon so they can't do more shenanigans that way. Now, here the Oryumon does have protection, so you couldn't be able to delete the Oryumon. So it does decide to go ahead, swing into security. It is doing 2 checks here, adding the Dorugumon or the Dorugreymon to give it 3 checks. It is still pretty big, hitting the Eden's Javelin in security. He doesn't quite have the other Tamer on field, so even if he has the Grumblemon, he wouldn't really be able to do anything here. So the Oryumon swings in for the stack, checking a Eden's. Unfortunately, he decides to not target the Oryumon, because if the Oryumon is able to live all 3 checks regardless, then the Ryudomon would just be able to finish up the game. So lets all of them go through, taking out the Ryudomon. We have just Tamer and small guy after small guy, so the Oryumon is able to take the stack. But even if the hybrid or the X-Antibody player does have the Grumble, which they do show right here, without another Tamer in play, they can't quite end game. And from the looks of it, it looks like they are very much struggling to have reboot. We know that the Hisaryumon that they digivolved into last turn that got deleted when they raised it up did have, that's one of his Hisaryumons, and I think we've seen one go already. And without another Hisaryumon attack to put underneath this Oryumon stack, there is no protection from this 3 swings, and they have a hybrid on the field, or the potential hybrid play. They have a Rapidmon on the field, and they have an Egg and Raising. So it is very scary for the X-Antibody player if they are not able to go ahead and clear the board or be able to put up a blocker that with reboot. Here they go ahead, digivolve into the Oryumon, tugging the Dorumon, gaining memory off of the Dorumon because they don't really have much they can do, but they target the only thing that they can in the yellow hybrid or in the Rapidmon. And at this point, they gain a little bit of extra memory. If they don't hit something good out of security, then this Susanomon swinging for the rest of the stack. Security attack +2, hitting a Chumon, one of the Yugis, and a second Yugi, and they are just able to go ahead and clean up game 2 because the X-Antibody player was not able to find his reboot for his blocker stacks. So that will be the match. It does look like the yellow hybrid player does take this one 2-0. Was just able to kind of outgrind. They had a decent amount of their resources, as yellow hybrid does, to keep the aggression on, to keep the recovery on. And X-Antibody just wasn't able to find some of its key pieces or its key protection effects. And that unfortunately was the downfall, because even though he was partially protected at some points, he wasn't able to be protected from every effect, and then he didn't quite find all the inheritables he needed to quite clutch out a game in this match. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Sorry about that little security stack thing. I will try to make sure people know not to do that while I'm recording, at least in the future. So if that did bother you, I do apologize. We will try to get that fixed and not have it happen in the matchups anymore. Locals or locals. Sorry about that. Other than that, if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video. We will be having more gameplay videos now that BT8 and the starter decks are legal. And then leave any comments down below about any questions you may have had about some of the deck profiles. The yellow hybrid deck profile in particular is the one that won the EU regional, and the X-Antibody profile is pretty much similar to the one that you saw in the last video. Nothing too crazy. It is the typical X-Antibody list. But with all that being said, again, thank you guys for watching to the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.